Hey guys, Tom here from Metalloud, and I'm here to review the new album from Simple Plan called Taken One for the Team. So, Simple Plan kind of really came up during the late 90s, early 2000s era of pop punk and power pop sounds and bands when they were starting to kind of transition a little bit away from their punk roots and more to kind of just poppier roots, and it kind of became its own thing during this time period. And a lot of bands started kind of pushing towards what people were calling emo, with some sappy love ballads and, woe is me songs, things like that. And that's kind of around the time when Simple Plan really hit it big with songs like I'm Just a Kid, for instance, off of the soundtrack for the movie The New Guy. And they really gained a lot of popularity in that group. They were a band that could definitely be played on the more alternative music stations, but at the same time could also be found in the more traditional, poppier, and more mainstream music stations as well, be it on TV or on the radio. They kind of were in that group that really crossed over a bit. And I personally never really got into them. I just found them to be a little bit lackluster in general, a little bit too just whiny at times. And but I knew a lot of people like them. They again, they never really were pop punk to me, which is kind of where I lean to. They were more just their own thing, and like I said, they kind of became its own thing at this point in time. And I'm saying that because this album, Taking One for the Team, really kind of digs into the past a lot, with a lot of the sounds that it has going for it. For instance, the opening track called Opinion Overload really kind of sounds like something that would have been done in that era, and really kind of has those kind of punk rock beats and breakdowns, things like that. And there's also a lot more poppier tracks on here as well. There's a lot of tracks on here. Like there's a track that features Nelly, for instance. There's another track kind of has like a almost reggae sound to it, or trying to have that feel, kind of something like Sugar Ray almost, or 311 to a degree. Although I think 311 is a little bit more successful. It sounds like it's just that style to kind of fit in with current pop trends, things like that. And it doesn't really work that well to me. It just feels out of place on this album. At the same time, it just feels kind of cheesy. And you could definitely tell what the singles that were written on this album. You could tell the singles that were written to appeal to the more, like I said, pop punk side of people. You could also tell the singles and the songs that were written to kind of appeal to a more pop sound, a more mainstream sound. It definitely, like the closing track's a kind of ballady, soft track. There's a song, in particular, one song I don't think does well at all is Perfectly Perfect, which I think they did actually release as a single, and it's kind of just really a bad song. It's generic, it's cheesy, it's sappy, it's just so whiny too. It's meant to be an uplifting song about finding someone's flaws to be beautiful, and saying that despite what everyone else says, despite your looks or your whatever, you're beautiful to me. And it's kind of that style, but it just comes off feeling almost creepy, really kind of sappy. It's just, it's sucked of all meaning that it could have had. It just doesn't really do well, I don't think. And it's kind of, you could tell that it was written definitely to be their kind of anthem on this, and to be their, big track that everyone gets behind, because they're talking about dealing with almost social issues, with accepting people no matter who they are, and things like that. And while the message, I get it, is good, it's just the delivery is just, it's really not good at all. What they did for it, I don't think it's going to fit in on I don't think it's going to fit in with mainstream audiences. Definitely not going to fit in with people who are looking for more pop punk sounds. And, it's something that might appeal to a younger crowd, I would say. For instance, if they'd released Perfectly Perfect in 2002, for instance, when they were gaining their popularity, I think that song might have been a hit and might have worked. I may not personally liked it, but I think it might have actually caught on a little bit, but I don't think it really suits the time. I don't think, speaking about now, it's really going to do too well, even though it's written in a way that you can obviously tell it was intended to be a their anthem or their ballad on this, and that they meant for people to be singing along and taking it to heart. And again, I hate it because I don't want to knock the message that they're going for on here, which is definitely love yourself and accept people and things like that, but it just doesn't, the delivery musically just does not stand up, and it just comes off as a really cheesy song. And for someone like me who enjoys pop punk, I'll say this: I reviewed the last Newfound Glory album, and I found it to be very set in it was like a very nostalgic album. Musically, it felt like it was something they could have released back in the late 90s, early 2000s from the pop punk scene, and it would have fit right in. I still feel that way about that album, Resurrection. And that's kind of where they go in a lot of the tracks on here that are leaning more towards pop punk. Like I said, the opening track, they even have a track that actually features Jordan Budnick of Newfound Glory on here called Nostalgic, and it really is kind of just a pop punk feel, but it's so generic in its style. It's so by the numbers. When everything's going to happen. The breakdowns. The guitar riff and stuff like that. It just sounds like something you've heard before, something that is just so watered down that it loses all its appeal. Even having Jordan Budnick on here, it really just loses all its charm that it could have had. And those are the songs that I could listen to at least and kind of maybe enjoy a little bit, but even then they're just so generic that they can't even help this album. And the songs that could have been good, and I'm not criticizing them just because I personally like pop punk over pop and things like that. It's just that the songs that are definitely leaning more towards pop are just so also generic that this album has no edge to it. It literally cannot be saved by those other tracks. Their pop songs aren't great. Their pop punk-ish songs are not great. There's nothing on here that really kind of can save this album. It's all mediocre at best. The some tracks aren't bad. Like the opening track again isn't a bad song. I don't hate that song. It's just weak and kind of blends in with everything else. But there are some bad tracks on here as well, as the other thing that the best that they can accomplish is mediocre. You're not going to have a great album in the end. There's tracks like there's a song "P.S. I Love You," which is again definitely something stuck in like the late or early 2000s and that style, and it literally sounds like a rip off of All Time Low. And I think the thing is that Simple Plan really haven't been, I would say, relevant for a while now. And in that time period that they really haven't had huge impact on anything and haven't really been around, there's been other bands that have filled their shoes and really kind of took what they did, that style of power pop, and did more to it and matured it a little bit, even if they started off as a little bit immature in the beginning, like again All Time Low. And I think that those other bands that have come in the meantime are doing what Simple Plan did better than Simple Plan is doing now, especially. So it doesn't really work in any sense. I mean, if you're a Simple Plan fan, it sounds similar to what they've done in the past, so you might enjoy this still. I could say that's probably its saving grace, is that if you are a Simple Plan fan, it's probably not going to offend you. But just overall, and for anybody else listening to it, whether you're into power pop and you're into power pop punk, or you're looking for pop, you're probably not going to find anything that you truly enjoy on this album. Again, it's not offensive to anybody. It's not like this is an album I would say needs to be thrown in the trash, or they shouldn't even try or anything like that. It's just it really doesn't hit anything. It really just fails to kind of even make it to a normal bar or anything like that. And for that, it's a weak album, and I really just don't think I could recommend it to anybody other than Simple Plan fans and people who are probably already going to check this album out. It doesn't reach new grounds. The songs aren't even that catchy too. Even the songs that are trying to be poppy and catchy don't even work like that. And that's the biggest issue. Is it's just that they're not bad. They really just fail to hit that even a bar of acceptability. And it's just it's not a mess. Production on at least is pretty decent, although sometimes his voice does sound a little bit almost auto-tuned, but other than that, the production on it's at least a positive aspect of it. But I mean, overall, this album is just so mediocre that you listen to it once and the songs just fade into your mind because you've heard them before, or they really do not have any kind of impact. And that's something indicative of this entire album, is that it just has no impact at all.